And I think our next artist might have something to say about the things that that are all around us, but which we don't necessarily notice, such as the supernatural world. And so I'd like to welcome all the way from Berlin, Travis Hendrix. So Travis, you are currently living in Berlin, but you're originally from Brisbane, and you are also a traveller and an artist and an illustrator and many other things, as well as being a graduate of the Queensland College of Art here in Brisbane. So you also delve into the inner space, which Katya was evoking with her, what would you call those, Katya? They're not poems.
It's not real poems, it's more like short story poems.
Story poems, yeah. So some inner explorations mediated by words, I guess. And so in Travis, in your work, you also delve into the inner space of the subconscious, strong German tradition with the likes of Freud and Jung. And you're trying to understand the fundamentals of self, others, and the magical and often inexplicable world in which we live. Travis has also been inspired or had his curiosity and creativity nurtured by travels around the world. So you've travelled extensively in Europe and Asia, drawing creative inspiration from your varied experiences. And Travis once described himself to me as a 21st century flaneur. Perhaps you can describe more accurately than I can, Travis, what you meant by that.
Yeah, well, I love the concept of the flaneur, and it's basically just a flaneur is somebody who moves through a landscape, most often an urban landscape, and doesn't necessarily have a destination, but just puts more importance on the actual journey itself and just kind of flows through a geographical space and makes observations as to how the geography influences the way that they flow through an area. And this is something that was explored a lot back to Guy, was it the Situationists, Guy Debord and his crew kind of explored the concept of the flaneur and psychogeography. So that was kind of my starting point for my art.
Maybe we will carry on with your presentation, if that's okay, yes. Travis. I think you were going to share some works of your own with us.
Yes.
And perhaps talk us through them as you show them to us?
Yep. Thanks. Because my work is about journeys and travel, I'm going to take you with this presentation on a journey from how I've come to be where I am right now. So a lot of my work takes the form of maps, cartography, and psychogeography. And starting from Brisbane and my graduation work, which was an exploration of the concept of semiotic blanks. So the blanks on our maps and what that actually means for the map makers and the people that utilize the maps. So it's more than just an absence of information. What a semiotic blank represents is a place where we can impart our ideas and imagination onto what we think is in a space that is, for us personally, an unmapped area of our lives. And this can be on an introspective point of view, it can be in a geographical point of view, any sort of level. So that's why my works go from geographic places and spaces to actual people and personalities, and how we, as we get to know people, we form a mental map of who they are. And obviously there are always going to be semiotic blanks involved in that as well. So this current work was the last work I was doing in Brisbane before I left for Germany. And it continues exploring that theme with like dreamscapes, interpretation of reality through dreams. Here we have the first of my works. When I arrived in Germany, in Berlin, I started keeping a travel journal, borrowed a lot from illuminated manuscripts and calligraphy, and using cartographic icons like the compass rose, which you can see here is like an interpretation of different cities done using cartographic icons such as the compass rose. And then trying to interpret this strange new place that I was. So the people, the buildings, the language, all these things that to me represented semiotic blanks because they were foreign and new. And originally when I came over here, I was part of an artist residency with Tucht here in Berlin. And with them, I had a chance to really get experimental with my work and look at other ways to interpret these ideas that I had. So using, again, pushing the idea of making maps, but mapping spaces that can't be mapped through traditional map-making techniques. I mean, we live in a day and age where, thanks to Google Earth, you can pretty much get a map of anywhere you want. So I was really trying to find the gaps in our technology as far as map making and show that there's like a liminal space between our high-tech gadgetry and maps and satellite maps and a more personal approach to map making that when viewed by other people, they may also find some mapped psychogeographic spaces that they find familiar. So these works were all very experimental for me. It was a complete breakaway from my usual techniques, and I was impressed upon to really get out of my comfort zone, which, you know, as if moving to a foreign country wasn't enough of that. But yeah, I tried to break out of that through my art as well. This was my finished piece for that residency. And I did have another residency at Pilottenkirche in Leipzig. I was 3 months in Leipzig. And here we can see how a lot of my works were starting to pull together. There's a great German word called Gesamtkunstwerk, which is like the collective volume of all of your creative endeavors. And as someone who loves calligraphy and writing and anatomy and detailed illustration, as well as cartography and watercolor, like I was really trying to find a place where all of these passions meet and create like my Gesamtkunstwerk. So here we see more interpretations of the city. Me really just trying to come to terms with who Berlin is. What is Berlin? Berlin is an amazing city. It's a perfect place for me to be right now because it's a very, very much a melting pot of ideas and creativity. One of my biggest loves is people watching, and this is something that, you know, a lot of people do all over the world. Just love to sit in a cafe and watch the world go by. And obviously, I'm also consciously aware of being people watched, and so there's this whole concept of who's watching the watchers. And then I started to explore this idea of mapping crowds and crowd mapping, and this became the final piece of my work at Pilottenkirche Artist Residency in Leipzig. It's a big exhibition. And here we have some of the works that I produced during the pandemic, during lockdown. So again, you can see an overlapping of my graphic illustrative style, as well as my loose, more abstract watercolor, as well as my calligraphy. calligraphy work overlapped into some fashion that I was doing, and it's a fashion line that I'm getting started up over here, where the calligraphy spills over the page and goes into fabric designs, tattoo designs, makeup, that sort of thing. And then here, again, pushing the idea of the calligraphy beyond the written word and into abstract works themselves. And this is my most current work here. Yeah, just overlapping things from Germany to things from back home, by working on to old books, using different techniques here, including gilding, doing gold leaf.
What really strikes me about all of these beautiful artworks that you've shared with us is the diversity of your practice. You're not limiting yourself to any medium or any style or any mode of expression, really. And you mentioned a word, a German word that sort of encapsulates that approach. Would you like to just
Gesamtkunstwerk. Yeah, so it's kind of it's like, I guess, if you were an apprentice and you were working towards a masterpiece, Gesamtkunstwerk is kind of that. It's a collection of everything that you know, everything that you love, what you're passionate about, and it brings it all together to some kind of masterpiece. So really what it's about is a stripping back of your practice, more than a coming together, because it goes by that adage of less is more. So you hone, refine, strip your practice back until you get to, it's kind of like searching for the philosopher's stone. You get to the core of who you are and what you're about. And for me, traveling and having challenges like living abroad is a great way to help that self-discovery.